Nice opinion. Just one tiny problem with it. Inspecting your post, it looks like your opinion is different from mine. Let me tell you something. I am the baseline for opinions. Any opinion I hold is objectively correct, and as a result, any other opinions are wrong. Guess what? You happen to hold a wrong one. I hope you know that your opinion is now illegal. I have contacted the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the Navy SEALs, Secret Service, and your mom. You'll be sorry you ever shared your opinions. By the time you're reading this, you'll be done for. Nature will punish you. Humanity will punish you. Supernatural beings will punish you. Space will punish you. We decided just to make sure we'll nuke your house from orbit, so there's no chance you can run away. Everyone will know you will die. It's a small price to pay to remove your wrong opinion from this world.
Alright, welcome back to anyone watching. If you're watching on the after stream is over, like, subscribe, comment your thoughts if you like this stuff. And we're gonna start off with MADEIn, which is something I talked about last night if you watched, but wait. Okay, there we go. Okay, so MADEIn, K-pop group that Zia has been accused of SA. So they debut in Japan only with the Japanese members. So and Seihu, whose hiatus, they delete the hiatus status, and Yesu, which I don't know why, is just not there at all. So MADEIN's first subunit, MADEIN S, I don't know why the S is there. Composed solely of Japanese members. Maybe it means MADEIN Seoul. I don't know. Members Michiru, Miyu, Serena, and Nagomi will begin promotions in August, while anticipation builds for the subunit debut. Fans are expressing growing concern over the complete exclusion of the Korean members, Suhei and Yesu, concerns that have only deepened following the deletion of Seihu's hiatus notice. The unit's launch was confirmed on the 31st of July through multiple media outlets. However, the announcement made no mention of the two remaining members, sparking backlash from the fans who have watched Seihu and Yesu quietly disappear from the public activity. Seihu, who was last active earlier this year and was briefly said to be on hiatus for personal reasons, a statement that was later deleted from the official platforms without clarification. A second post from April citing health reasons for her absence from the Osaka showcase remains visible, but no additional updates have been provided. She has missed all major group events since then and is not included in any unit plans. Yasu, meanwhile, has received no mention or explanation whatsoever, despite her absence from recent schedules and MADEIN S. The company has not acknowledged her status in any form. The continued silence is leading to speculation that both crew members are being sidelined behind the scenes, as MADEIN S prepares for upcoming promotion, including an appearance at Kansai Collection 2025, AW, where Michiru and Mayu are set to walk the runway. The group's direction is raising more questions than excitement. Fans, especially maybes, deserve to know what's really going on. Why was Suhu's hiatus statement erased? Why is Suhu's current situation? Why is the company avoiding transparency? The public posts disappearing and members left unacknowledged, maybe are left piecing together the truth, and we deserve a clear answer. We are watching, we won't be silent. Where is Suhei and Yesu? Stop bleeding statements. So that is the MADEIN update. So that's that. I might go in more detail if I make one tomorrow. With that said, let's get into the other thing, which is, Johnny Somali and Vshojo, which I'm about to talk about. So let's get into that. So
2025, we have.
All right.
Ramzi Khalid Ismail has been hit with a new criminal charge. That's right. As of 2 days ago, on the 25th of July of 2025, we have a new criminal charge for Johnny Somali, aka Ramzi Khalid Ismail. Of course, I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney, and this is a legal mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. Now, this is a fast facts format, which is a summary of my stream. So you want to see all the questions, the comments, the commentary, a little bit more banter, go check that out. But this is the quick and dirty version, so we get right down to the facts. And of course, as always, we have a lovely PowerPoint for you today. So let's jump right into it today for the 8th indictment. So once again, he has been officially indicted. So this is something that is confirmed in the court records. Now, time and time again, we have a trend. We have a trend that I called out in the beginning, and I said this would happen. And exactly as I predicted, we are seeing new charges added right before each court date. Every single court date since the beginning of this process, we have seen charge after charge after charge after charge added in. This is called merging in a charge. It is atypical for this to happen once, but it is completely unprecedented from the people I've talked to, lawyers, others in this process, to see this many merged into the case, which really means they are hitting him and with needles and needles and needles procedurally, which is exactly why Korea draws out these trial dates. They draw out these trial dates over time. This trial will not be done on his next court date. It will not be done on August 13, 2025. In fact, we can see this thing go as quickly as going into, let's say, October, November, maybe it could end, or it could go into 2026. It's very, very possible that can happen at this point. It really all depends on how this plays out, and also on how Johnny pleads. So let's get into what it is today. And let's also get into a quick summary, because some of you may have taken a little break from Somali, so you need a little refresher. So Somali, before this charge, so this is before the one we're going to talk about today, before today had 7 criminal charges. And those charges were 3 accounts of obstruction of business. We have 2 accounts of the Minor Crimes Act, and 2 deepfake counts. So this is what it is before. And as of this, he's pled guilty to 4 of these, 2 obstruction, 2 minor crimes, and he's pled not guilty to 2 deepfakes and 1 obstruction. So we've got this kind of split thing where he's going to have to present witnesses. He's going to have to try to defend himself against these charges, the deepfakes, the charge for obstruction. And that's going to take a lot of time and effort and money from Johnny Somali. And as a additional reminder, before today, once again, for people out there, this is the sentencing range before today. It changes wildly, and you're going to see it in the best way. And that's the best way for me and those who want Johnny Somali convicted, and the worst way for Johnny Somali after this one is added. So here we had this kind of scale where he could be anywhere from 6 months if they found out that everything was mitigated. Once again, even before this was added, the chances of him getting a mitigated sentence were almost 0. We're going to have a 0% chance of mitigation after this is added. There's no way this cannot be looked at as habitual crime pattern or a crime spree, which completely eliminates the mitigated column. Under the default, which is on the standard, if he's neither bad nor good, that's 2 years and 6 months. Aggravated minimum, which means if they find he is an aggravated criminal, a repeat offender, horrible, not saying he's sorry, not giving restitution, not paying money back, which is all things that we have here, they would sentence him aggravated. And that would be a minimum of 4 years and 3 months up to 12 years. Well, this all changes. And this all changes with the new charge.
So regardless of what happens, he's going to jail for probably a few years at best, or at the worst, a few, at the worst, or at the best, I would say multiple years.
Charged as an additional obstruction of business criminal count. So now we have 4 counts. Count them, 4 counts of obstruction of business. This is absolutely insane. It's crazy. And this is what I told you beforehand. Now, Johnny Somali Ramzi was mocking me back in November and December of last year for counting all those individual instances. Because remember, when you do something, that is an individual instance of a crime, and they can stack those counts. If you go and rob 2 banks, that's 2 counts of robbery. It's not 1 count of robbery because you went on a robbery spree. You get 2 counts. If you murdered 2 people, that's 2 counts of murder. So because of that, we've now got 4, and we'll talk about what it likely is. But the most important thing here is that this is going to come up at trial on August 13th. So he's going to have to decide what to do with this. Now, he may or may not make a plea at the next trial date. So he may or may not say whether he pleads guilty or not guilty. And by the way, he's finding out about this from my stream. He doesn't know about this. We actually know from the court records that he is going to get the notice tomorrow. So Johnny Somali doesn't even know until right now. And he's going to find out when he gets that translation in the mail tomorrow or Tuesday.
Yeah, because he's, not the smartest person.
So that's going to be a little surprise in Hanky Poo's mailbox that, hey, yo, you got an extra criminal charge. And hey, Legal Mindset is right, because every time I bring this up, it is precisely
vindication once again.
Correct, because these are official records. These are official court records. Now,
you can choose to raid the caravan, or you can choose to guard it.
If he doesn't make a plea, that's great, because then we will get more time. It'll extend the trial, and he's in Korea even longer. His attorney may say, I want some time to think about this.
Yeah, he's going to be stuck in Korea for a while.
So I want some time to look at the evidence. And very well, they could delay that and push that off to a future date. So we don't know that yet. And once again, the process is the punishment with Johnny Somali with this case. So I am all for him taking his time, bleeding this out, spending Hank's mom's money on this. That absolutely is the best case scenario. Now, let's look at what the new chart looks like. Now, this was a chart that was put together by the Somali conviction team. They worked really hard on this, and I want to give a special shout out to Bang TV, who did a lot of help on this, a smaller Korean channel.
Well done.
Check out his channel. I did an interview with him. He's a great guy. He did a lot of help. Also, the Somali conviction team, you can support them on Ko-Fi/Andrew Esquire. I'm going to be doing something big for them this month. And if that link will be in the description below if you want to support the team, because they helped out making this chart, because your boy was very busy here. So thank you to the Somali conviction team for helping out with the work. So now you see 4 counts of obstruction of business. 1 is for disrupting 7-Eleven. 1 is for a bus. 1 is for a ride at Lotte World. And you see guilty, guilty, not guilty, and question mark. And of course, we have the Minor Offenses Act and the deepfakes. So he's going to need to decide what to do with this at the next plea hearing. Now, what is this for? Well, we can speculate. And our best speculation is either the subway or the bus, particularly either the day, I believe, September 26th or 27th of last year, because there was certain questions that were being asked by police. And we on the Somali conviction team have put together the facts to figure out that it's probably a bus or subway incident near the 27th of September. And we're going to go back and confirm that. Of course, it could also be related to the rotting fish harassment. Someone was running around with the fish and harassing people. He also got on a bus that day. It's very likely a bus. We don't believe it's ABC Pizza, because they kind of feel lazy. They don't want to get involved. They haven't been involved so far. So we think it's that. Now, we could be wrong. This is speculation. All we know right now is obstruction. We will know the exact reason at the next trial date as we give live updates on August 13th. So that's a reason for you guys to tune in on that day, because we're going to figure out what this is factually and whether there's witnesses, etc. Remember, we had a victim come up, and a victim that was asking for extreme punishment. We don't know which victim that is. It could be a victim from the bus. We have no idea whatsoever. So we're going to find out a lot of juicy facts at the next trial date, which is why I'm so excited to be covering that live when it goes live in Seoul. So that's what we have for that. Now, I saved the best for last, the sentencing chart. This sentencing chart just got amazing. Let's check this out. So this is an updated chart. Now, so you understand, these are the guidelines for one single crime of obstruction of business, of deepfakes, of total. We're going to look at the bottom to look at Johnny's totals. This is as it applies to Johnny. And this is, of course, from the Korean sentencing guidelines, which we have used over here. And this is what everybody should be paying attention to. If any YouTuber or any outlet reports anything but this, they are not applying the sentencing guidelines. It's a incorrect application of the sentencing guidelines. He's not going to get 30 years. He's not going to get 28. That's beyond the maximums. So just understand that these are the real numbers, and these are the real numbers that people need to use, or else they're not reporting accurate information. But the information that's really important here, and the one I want you to pay attention to, is the default and the aggravated. Remember, the default was about 2 years. Now it's 4. The aggravated minimum, which I think is very possible, is 8 years and 4.5 months. Think about that, people. A minimum of 8 years and 4.5 months. That cannot be more wonderful. That cannot be more apt punishment for a Johnny Somali if he gets 8 years in a Korean prison. Of course, the maximum has not changed from 12. That's the cap, statutory cap, so they can't go beyond 12. So I do think it is very realistic at this point to say Johnny Somali is looking anywhere between 4 to 12 years, particularly to say 8 years. My guess is now around the minimum, so 8 years and 4.5 months. I think this is my guess in terms of categories. I don't think he's going to get the max.
I mean, from what I understand, the maximum is very rare, so I think that's reasonable. But, oh boy, you're going to be there 8 years stuck in prison for that long you shouldn't have messed in Korea.
I don't think he's going to get default. I think this is where he'll land. But of course, it is completely reasonable for him to get this as well. So this is absolutely fantastic news in terms of Johnny Somali. And this is certainly going to be causing angst for our favorite cabbage farmer. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll catch you.
Do the cabbage.
Are you guys enjoying the stream today?
All right. So next is what we're gonna do is obviously Vshojo. Okay. Oh, oddly, there we go. Next is Vshojo, or technically next 2. But here's obviously mismanagement. Then we go to the big one, which is the meltdown of Vshojo.
Vshojo has more news as to their mismanagement as we're in this era of them melting down, facing serious, and I mean dead serious, legal issues, regulatory issues related to their pending bankruptcy, related to their labor.
More like an individual non-existent of Vshojo.
Claims and potential criminal activity as it relates to charity fraud. So we've got a lot of stuff going on here with Vshojo, but we have a letter from an actual employee at Vshojo. We're going to go today. That was posted on LinkedIn.
Shoot.
We've got the translated version.
Wow.
And this really exposes the inside mispractices, mismanagement, and issues at Vshojo. Of course, I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney, and this is Legal Mindset where we teach you to be your own judge. This is a Fast Facts premiere, a quick and dirty version of the latest news that gets out there to you as quickly as possible. I've been very busy personally lately, so haven't had time for the full-length streams, but I've been trying to get these Fast Facts out to you to get the latest and greatest news to you as quickly as possible. So if you like that, you like these formats, please leave a comment and a like on this video. Let me know, hey, I like this, and here are my thoughts on the Vshojo issue below. All right, so let's hop into it without any further ado. Here we go. Here's your letter from Alex Kiyoshi. Now, this was originally posted in Japanese on LinkedIn. However, this is the translated version in English. I did several translations and looked at folks that were pretty skilled. I think this one is good enough. Obviously, understand that with anything that's translated anywhere into any language, there can be certain things that can be translated in.
That said, all the videos I react to, and including the Twitter post on MADEIn, I have the original posters links in the description. So if you want to check out all those stuff, they're in the description. So that's it. Let's continue.
In multiple ways, so there's a possibility of kind of minor changes, but overall the tune and the theme and candor of it speaks to the mismanagement at Vshojo. So let's just hop right into it. I'm going to read along and we'll stop as we're going to go. Over the past year, Vshojo has faced an extremely challenging situation involving mismanagement from upper management, which only came to light just before its closure. It's now been officially announced that Vshojo has ceased operations. I want to stop there because I'm not always going to agree with Alex here. So I think that what he's saying when he says that the mismanagement from upper management was only came to light just now, that is not entirely correct. I think there were people speaking out about this a year or 2 years ago. Now, they couldn't say everything. They were under threat of lawsuits. They had NDAs, etc. Even their moms have NDAs. So I know while these things,
which is crazy, but yeah, I mean, before this, most of them, even after they left, couldn't say anything about it.
things may be new news for certain people, and maybe to a certain extent, this individual didn't know the full scope until the last couple months. It's now very clear, and to certain people, particularly the upper management, amongst the upper management, they knew this was going on for a year, 2 years, 3 years. They knew they had major issues. So there's a lot of culpability at the top, not just with the gun run, but certainly including the gun run. They knew this was going on for a long time, and they decided to push forward despite major issues and the inability to really turn to a profitable business. They really had no business being in business because they had no path to profitability that was realistic. So taking this opportunity, so he's saying it has now been announced that Vshojo has ceased operations. So that is true. Now, of course, they're going to need an official bankruptcy. They're going to need official filings. They're going to have a new criminal investigation. So this Alex Kiyoshi fellow, he's not out of the woods. He can be investigated. There's criminal stuff that may come down, regulatory stuff, labor stuff. So he's not out of the woods despite this letter. So anyways, taking this opportunity, I would like to finally speak publicly about my experiences at Vshojo and my prior role at Cover. So he's going to go into Cover Corporation, of course, a separate corporation. This post addressed misunderstandings and rumors stemming from a leaked pitch document created by Vshojo's U.S. team, which has been circulating online recently. This document, by the way, I'm giving some context here, was created in January of 2025. This document led to incorrect perceptions of my role and involvement. The entertainment industry thrives on trust. I regret not only that Vshojo has lost trust of its talents and staff, but also that my name has been misrepresented in a manner inconsistent with the facts. First, let me clarify my role at Cover. I served as advisor and business planner at Cover, as accurately reflected on my LinkedIn profile. This can be verified by Cover's executives, EN team members, or the talents themselves. However, for some reason, Vshojo's materials referred to me as Gen 1 director, which is factually incorrect. The information has also led to confusion with Omega, a figure who was publicly disliked by some talents at the time. In reality, my role was to address the root of that issue, and I was the one who led the effort to remove Omega. When I joined Cover, my primary mission was to identify and resolve issues within the overseas team. I collaborated with the CEO and CFO in strategic planning for IPO preparations, addressing challenges for EN Indonesia teams, and establishing an international business division for global expansion, because that's what Cover's been trying to do. Even after the IPO, that's the initial public offering, for those that don't know, I continued to support the overseas team as an advisor. So you can continue as an advisor for pretty much forever. And also sometimes as an advisor, you can work for other companies. Mind you, that can be true. So by the way, him saying he worked as an advisor wouldn't necessarily get him out of working for other people or taking on independent work necessarily in and of itself. Now, the Cover Corporation, aka HoloLive contract might, but not in and of itself legally.
Join Planet Fitness today and save $28 or more. Just $1.
Let's continue. During my 3 years at Cover, while working at large-scale projects, I faced a significant decision, whether to relocate to the U.S. for establishment of a new brand or choose a new path. At that time, I received an offer from Vshojo to remain in Japan because he liked Japan. Due to personal circumstances, I chose that option. He probably had a family, wife, mother, father, friends, something like that. I mean, that's a legitimate decision to stay behind in Japan. Regrettably, that decision turned out to be a significant mistake. That said, working with Vshojo's Japan team was an incredibly meaningful and proud experience. Despite being a small team, we operated with high efficiency, generated profits, and successfully launched a VTuber group, Nova. Although the company no longer exists, I, along with all the other former Japanese staff, am fully committed to supporting Nova and the Japanese talents as they continue their activities.
That said, that title's still on the website, even though they don't exist anymore.
I want to make something very clear here. This is a big confusion, and to be honest, I am going to give a little pushback on him here. There is no distinction between the legal distinction between the JP branch and the EN branch. This is an internal distinction, which makes no difference legally, financially, etc.
It's the same
Vshojo
thing.
wasn't making a profit. He wasn't making a profit. Just because the talents he micromanaged within the corporation were making a profit does not make the corporation at all profitable. And the liability overall falls on the corporation as a whole because they're not legally distinct. There is no legally separate Japanese branch. They cannot split that off legally. They cannot spin that off. That's practically impossible, legally impossible. So he was not profitable. Just because his people he managed personally were does not mean the corporation overall was. So that distinction is an internal distinction, which makes no difference at all whatsoever. When the bankruptcy court comes in, they're not going to say, oh, yeah, well, the JP people were profitable and the EN weren't. No, they don't care. They look at overall assets and liabilities. And as we know, Vshojo had a huge problem putting things in the right category. They were putting, fees for talents under cost of goods, which is insane. So let's continue here.
That is crazy.
So let me go here. The events that affected Vshojo's talents, including Iron Mouse, came as a major shock to the Japanese team as well. We are completely unaware of the internal situation until recently. Well, now, obviously, I will say this in his defense. I do think he's not in charge of finances. So I don't think this man was in charge of the financing or the accounting because that would be weird. He's more like a JP assistant manager, of the JP branch. So that wouldn't be in charge of the overall financials. So I will give him the benefit of the doubt there. Now, that there could come up something that would change my mind on that. We could get further discovery or evidence that makes him culpable. But for now, I will give him the benefit of the doubt. Going on, we're unaware of the situation. Financial management was entirely under control of the U.S. headquarters, which I would agree. And neither the Japan branch president, there was no real branch, remember this is an internal distinction, nor I were informed that payments to Japan-based talents were outstanding. This part, I don't believe. I believe the talents probably complained to him. This, I think, is the lie. I think the talents probably told him that they're not getting paid. If he's in charge of the talents probably at some point told him they're not getting paid. Hey, we're not getting paid. They probably told somebody or somebody under him they're not getting paid. I think that's not true.
I mean, someone has. I have a very high suspicion that anyone from the Japanese branch did not know that the talents were getting paid. Someone had to have known. There's. I'm not claiming to be knowledgeable on this, but I'm pretty sure someone had to have known at that side of the branch. Someone had to have known.
I think that's not true. We are deeply frustrated such a decision was made despite the ability to pay those payments. I initially joined Vshojo to assist with fundraising efforts, but during investment negotiations, I grew suspicious when critical financial documents were not provided by upper management. That is a huge red flag. In hindsight, I now understand that this is intentionally concealed. From early on, there were numerous concerns about the company's management, and the Japan branch president and I were exploring the possibility of operational separation, but it was already too late. I feel profound disappointment regarding the series of events at Vshojo. At the same time, it will continue to provide as such support as possible to ensure that former talents can continue their activities with peace of mind. Thank you for reading this to the end. Please feel free to reach out with concerns and questions. Alex Kiyoshi. Well, Alex, my question to you is, are you willing to give up your salary and pay back some of those talents? Because if you feel responsible for the Japanese branch, if you're really somebody who feels personally responsible, what skin is in the game for you, Alex? Why don't you give them some of your money? Why don't you turn over some of that to the talents? Because obviously you're getting paid when they weren't. Everybody at that corporation should have taken a haircut, including you. So I don't let Alex off the hook here. I don't give Alex a free pass. I think, yes, upper management is responsible as well, but there are things they could have done. Certainly, if the talents were telling him, hey, we're not getting paid, and I'm sure at a certain point he knew they weren't getting paid because I'm sure they were telling people that were close to them they weren't getting paid, that's going to be something that's a big deal. You got to take a haircut on that. And by the way, some people don't know the term haircut. Haircut means a reduction, right? So your salary is, $100,000 a year. You're going to say, hey, I'm going to give up $25,000 to pay the talents that are under me, and that's going to personally go to them instead of me taking that salary. If you're really responsible, you want to step up, put up or shut up. And that's my personal thing. And of course, I believe the gun run should have been taking a pay cut. I believe the upper COO should be taking a haircut as well, should be taking a reduction and paying that to the talents. That's true responsibility. And I've seen that happen at corporations. I've seen that happen at major corporations. It's not impossible. It's not difficult. And it's still possible now if you really wanted to make it right. Or even better, if you don't want to pay the talents, donate to the Immune Deficiency Fund. There you go. Or foundation, right? Iron Mouse's charity. Donate to them. Show some skin in the game that you feel responsible and culpable for this, and you know that something wrong went on, and it was wrong that you were being paid when these talents were going without a dollar in the bank account. And of course, these talents are often young and often people that are exploited in the job market, and certainly were exploited by Vshojo. Guys, let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will catch you on the
All right, time for, the last part, which is for me. Okay, which is the big one. I got part of this, but I didn't get the entire thing, so.
The Vshojo meltdown continues as things get worse for the VTubing company. Of course, the legal mindset, we teach you to be your own judge. I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney in the Say Fast Facts version. Now, this is going to be a not so fast facts version because I was having some internet troubles. I don't know really what it was. I thought it was my streaming software. I thought it was OBS, but it's probably a connection issue for tonight. So while I get that sorted, I'm going to do this one. It will be a little longer than normal because I've got a lot of stuff I need to cover. Some things I have covered, some things I haven't covered. And we're going to get to those today on this kind of extended fast facts version. Please leave a comment and a like below. And I do apologize for those attending the lives and weren't able to see that because, well, my connection wasn't working. So sorry, guys. I love you and appreciate you. But as always, we have a PowerPoint. So let's get through this PowerPoint on the death of Vshojo. So starting out with, of course, the best meme out of this with Case on here. We've got Justin the Gun Run Ignacio. Now he made an official statement, which I did a separate video on, but I had some additional stuff now that I've simmered down a bit and thought about it. Another thing I wanted to mention about this statement, and as before, I said this is a confession. This is admitting to criminal activity. This in no way removes him from culpability. His attempt to say this was something that he, quote unquote, later learned does not get him out of it. And also all the proof shows he knew about this. And he was actively fundraising for Iron Mouse during this. We have photos of that. We have proof of that. And he even sent out a congratulations. So him trying to ostrich this is absolutely ridiculous. And he is, of course, as the CEO, responsible for everything in the company, right? At the ultimate, the buck stops at the top, right? That's why you get paid the big paycheck, because you have the big risk, right? So at the top of the food chain, you have the highest risk and the highest reward. If your company is super successful, you can become a Bezos or Elon Musk, etc., right? But if it fails, you can be an Enron, right? And you can be that guy. So that's the risk of CEOs. That's why you take on that burden, and that can ruin you as a personal brand, as an individual CEO, if you are at the head of a company. And now this guy, the Gun Run, is going to be bearing that for the rest of his life. Now, does that mean the responsibility stops with him? Listen up, Tech Town. No, it does not. Of course it doesn't. But he still is responsible as well. So Gun Run is on the line and others are too. And what was really funny is, like rats off the ship, we have this guy over here, Mutindo, who immediately, this is a guy who quit, 2 months ago-ish. And he's trying to say, nah, bro, what the absolute F at the Gun Run, pretending as if he didn't know. This thing was going on for a year almost, and likely even longer, but at least a year, right? We've got proof that it may be much longer than a year, but certainly when he was there. So yes, he knew about this. This was not a secret. In fact, we're going to show this recently revealed pitch deck that actually shows that this guy would 100% have been there at the time in which this was going down. So trying to pretend that he didn't know this absolutely does not. And further, it wouldn't get him off from being deposed, from being, investigated for his portion, his contribution to this, because certainly this guy, knew something. So, I mean, he's got to, they've got to figure out, okay, what did this guy know? What did he not know? What part of this would he be culpable for or not culpable for? Because there's something that this guy likely did know. And, they were looking at these projections, which, here's part of the pitch deck here in my PowerPoint, and then we'll go over a summary that's been provided on X. You've got a forecast from October 2024, which already wasn't looking good, right? The forecast was already looking not good even in October of 2024. But then you see in January, and this is based on Addison, who got this information over here on X. And I am taking this at its face value. So understanding that, of course, any information can be proven to be not credible, etc. But let's take this at face value because it matches up with concurrent testimony and concurrent reports and pretty much the consistent reports of the talent. So at this point, I am going to take this at face value. So based on what Addison says here, Wifey and I got access to a recent Vshojo pitch deck, and some of the stuff is really interesting. TLDR describes Gun Run as the most well-connected Twitch staff. That is very interesting. Lost $2.5 million.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot.
In 2024. What that shows to me is a level of financial negligence that is pretty insane. And I understand that businesses are supposed to lose money the first couple years, but this business has been going since 2020, right? At this point, at some point, you have to start making calls to cut back. And I'm sorry, as an adult, and once again, as a CEO, and this guy is not a child, he's not a kid, he's an adult, you need to make adult business decisions. What does that mean? Scaling back on advertising and marketing. What does that mean? Scaling back on some large events. What does that mean? Cutting back staff. If you have staff that need to be trimmed, they've got to be trimmed. What does that mean? Renegotiating splits if you have to, and then maybe you'd have to lose contracts over that, right? Or changing terms, etc. And understanding that you led people in with an unsustainable model. And I understand that they wanted to have this model that was, the talents first, and we're going to do all this for them. But that wasn't the reality of how a business could operate, and they certainly were not able to operate that way for whatever reason. And we don't know exactly how their finances split out. We don't know where that money was funneling, who was getting what. I'm really, really, really curious to get those balance sheets and show exactly where they were allocating their money. And based on some reports, and I know that CDOG VA did this, it seems like they might have been over budgeting on advertising and marketing, like in Shinjuku Station, when they should have been focusing on, paying for the talents and, paying the talents at all. So there's probably some misallocation.
Paying the people that should be getting paid. Shocking thought there, but, maybe.
Funds. We don't know yet whether there was any true theft of funds. So we do not know yet whether they were taking the funds for a completely wildly illegitimate purpose outside the business, for example, for personal gain, for buying a yacht, for buying a Ferrari, a Lamborghini. We also don't know what the compensation was for the executives. Were they taking a haircut? Were the executive officers taking a haircut at a time in which they were not paying out their contracts? That's what I want to know. And I have a sneaking suspicion that they were not. But we'll see. So even with aggressive growth, they'd still not turn a profit, even with aggressive growth. And that's unrealistic, right? This includes plans to license out IP. What IP? See, that's the thing. They don't own the IP. So the only way they could do that is if they renegotiated the contracts to take the IP away from the talents, to remove the IP from the talents. The only way to license out IP under those contracts would be to get the permission of the talents to license out that IP. Now, a license can be terminated at any time, right? A license is not a sale, but still, that's a lot. And that is a very interesting element there regarding the IP that they were planning to perhaps restrict or renegotiate the contracts as it relates to IP.
So it's book your next hotel. If you don't book.
So
So, uses the fact they raised $1 million for charity to attract investment. Unable to confirm if it's the 500K. It probably is. It probably is. 10 managers, 10 talent managers, their salaries are included within the cost of goods sold. Once again, there's been a lot of accountants, and shout out to all the accountants that are out there that have said this is ridiculous. Why? And I'm not an accountant, but I've read a lot of budgets, particularly corporate and government budgets. Why would you do that? That doesn't make sense to me, right? 20 to 30 employees, claims IP posts. Now, once again, I don't know whether that's way too much, but they probably had some folks that they could look into saying, hey, look, we're not doing well. We need to work on our budget. And frankly, when times are tough, you do have to cut back, and you do have to say, hey, some staff has got to go, right? Who do we have here that we can remove without hurting the talents? And from what I've heard with the from the talents in general, is that the support just wasn't really there. They weren't getting that support. So what are the talent managers and employees doing? They were not fully supporting the talent as far as the reports I've heard go. Now, I could hear elsewise, but we'll see. Claims IP licensing will bring in $2.1 million with nothing to back up that number. That's completely speculative. The reason why they use that number is because they're trying to plug a hole here. They're trying to say, well, this is our magic bullet that's going to save us. Initially contained IRL photos of Vshojo talent, which
that's against the VTuber thing. Unless the person gives explicit permission, you can share a real life photo of the person. That's kind of the point of a VTuber. You don't see their real face unless they themselves post it or give permission to post it.
True redacted. They were straight up doxing the talent from this. That's really to me that part of this story is absolutely nuts. And this is the part where, I just think the story keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And the picture that it's painting is of a corporation that just fully was neglecting their clients for essentially a delusion. I mean,
they literally fed them a delusion of the company was doing well when it wasn't, and they also weren't getting paid, and they literally fed them a delusion that it was going to be fine.
Absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I'll pull up some of the slides here. Let's pull up some of the slides just so we get through that, because I just want to show you guys that some of the stuff here. Okay, so obviously you've got hold on, we got here. You've got some financial projections here, which we showed already. You've got Vshojo. Once again, this is January. So that executive that left 2 months ago is not going to get out of what was public knowledge in 2025 that they're losing money, right? So you have the financial projections there, right?
Yeah.
And I believe here we go. I had this post here. There were doxes of talents here. Doxing Nova. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff.
Messed up in every way.
Talking about, all the stuff they're going to do, which once again, don't really know it's going to happen. And their projections, not looking good at all. So really crazy stuff coming out of that. And thank you for Addison for getting that information and for putting that together, because I think that's a big element in this story. Okay. So the next thing we have is the Vebe kind of letting go of all of our information. Now, this is a big one to go through, and I may even do we'll have to maybe even do a separate comment on this, because maybe people will have questions or bring this up. But this is great because Vebe now essentially took the position that the NDAs are void. Now, to be very clear, and I made this comment on another video, each talent needs to talk with their lawyers if they are confident, if their lawyer is confident with them going out and speaking out. I can't tell them. However, my general opinion is at this point, the gun run said they're insolvent. So the gun run said they have no money. So with what money are they going to pay a bunch of lawyers to go chase down and enforce NDAs? I think it's highly unlikely. However, that risk is not for me to take for the talent. The talent is the one to choose, hey, Am I going to risk that Gun Run is going to use his personal money to go sue everybody? Because he might. We don't know. We don't know what's going to go on with that. Some people are very litigious. And as we're going to see from Vei's story here, which does check out, is that Vshojo was very litigious, and they were absolutely using threats of lawsuits to intimidate people, lawsuits that perhaps they couldn't even bring, and they would definitely lose if it came to a fight, but they were threatening to drain the talents. Because
in my personal opinion, I think as of now, since they admitted they have no money, they said they're leaving, they're shutting down, plus a bunch of other things. I think the NDAs would probably not. Even if they didn't have permission to NDA, I don't think anyone would do it because, again, what money? Second off, at this point, the NDAs might as well be non-existent anymore. So, but again, it is worth. It's still a risk to do it, but it might be a worth risk just to tell your story of an experience with Vshojo.
because they know that they've got more money than the talents. So in a general legal battle, yes, they might lose on the law, but in the money, in the procedure, in the, hey, we can draw this out and make this annoying for you, they might be able to win, or at least scare them and intimidate them. So let's get into this with the Vei story here. So saying why I left. Back in 2023, Vshojo tried to bully me into one of the most predatory contracts I'd ever seen. Now, I will say this. The version of the Vshojo contract that I saw is not as predatory as Niji Sanji, but it wasn't good, right? And now a lot of people have asked me to release that. I will not, because the person asked me to not do that, and I do respect confidentiality, particularly as
you should.
So that will not be happening. However, it was not great.
If you don't know where to start in Top Heroes World, the Springland is a great place to start. There are low-level enemies.
We'll put it that way. So when I tried to ask more about it, their CEO got extremely hostile with me and refused to answer any questions. So I had to hire a lawyer in order to get some clarification. So that's very normal. You are fully allowed to hire a lawyer of your own. There's nothing wrong with that. During the talks, it became clear that Vshojo would rather let me go than take less from me, which is very true. They usually will try to treat you like dirt, so they make you sign the contract they want and they don't negotiate it. They were ultimately wanting me to give up more than half of all my sponsor revenue and over 60% of the merch sales. All I asked for them in return is not to take a cut of the sponsors I was getting through Mythic, as that cut was already taken. They said no. They wanted it all. And so I asked to leave after being treated like I was disposable in their talks. They basically made it seem like they were my employer. This is the big point, guys. They are acting like employers. This is why I think labor law needs to apply to them as employers, because of their behavior, because of their control, because their structure, because their predatory nature. I think that the regulatory bodies need to look at this and say, this is not the way you behave with an independent contractor. You behave this way, employee and employer. And this is spot on from Vei. And they're the reason for my success. And I owe them, and I should be happy to give them my money. In order for me to leave, they demanded I sign an NDA that prevented me from speaking to any other talent about it. Here's the thing. If you're an independent contractor, particularly, they can't prevent you from leaving. And if, under US law, you can just say bye. There should be no way they can prevent you from leaving. What they probably did, and this is probably something that was added on here, was say, we're not going to pay you unless you sign an NDA, or we're not going to pay out your last payments, et cetera, or whatever we owe you unless you sign an NDA. Maybe they did that. But by the way, what is that in terms of additional consideration? Whenever you have an additional contract or something else, there should be something else given, exchanged in response. What are they giving you for that? If they wanted you to sign an NDA, they should have already made you sign it in the beginning, right? They're making you sign an additional NDA. No, sorry, you're not going to sign that. You don't have to sign that. You're not obligated to sign that. Now, they can threaten you all they want, but if they're going to go to court, okay, they're going to try to sue you and say, oh, they didn't sign an extra NDA, and the judge is going to say they didn't have to. There's no obligation for them to sign an additional NDA. They can just say, screw you, Vshojo, and walk. And for talents out there that are in corporations that are trying to make them do this, what you need to ask them is, what are you going to give me for it? And if it's, well, we're going to pay you what we owe you, that's not good enough. You already owe that money. You already legally owe that money. If they're saying, oh, we're going to withhold your last paycheck, no, you need to pay me that money. That's money you owe me. That's not something extra. That's something special. Give me something extra. If you want me to sign an NDA, you better grease the wheels. And maybe they'll pay you some money, or give you some cut or a bonus or something else for signing an NDA. And if that's something you're happy with, then okay. If you're not, don't sign the NDA. But this is extraordinarily predatory. Extraordinarily predatory. I cannot say why I was leaving. I cannot say what the terms that I was saying no to were. I even got in trouble for advising them to hire their own attorneys, because you know what? They didn't even have a real attorney. They had an unlicensed attorney. Yes, that's right. This is something that's come out with Silvervale and other places. They had an unlicensed attorney, an attorney that their bar had license had expired. Now, some corporations do this. In fact, I worked at a large corporation. I had 30 lawyers, and 2 of them did have expired licenses. Now, the thing is, a lot of the work that those lawyers with expired licenses were doing was not what I would call formal practice of law. They were doing a lot of like document review and some sort of like document filing, et cetera, stuff like that. They're more like paralegals that were attorneys. And of course, paralegals are not lawyers, right? But they still do work that contributes to the legal field, right? They still work at law firms. So they were doing more paralegal type work, which generally is fine. Or if you're doing more business type work, that's fine. So a lot of lawyers that are no longer actively practicing, they don't keep their bar lessons up, they're still in business. I mean, lawyers can do other things. Lawyers can, do whatever they want to do. They're free people. So that is not surprising totally, but it's dangerous. The other big thing is with attorneys that have expired licenses that are no longer licensed to practice, they no longer have attorney-client privilege. So anything you say to them as a corporation, right? So let's say you're talking to your quote unquote attorney, but they're not a real attorney. They don't have a license. Well, then there's no attorney-client privilege. And that's one reason why, or at least personally, I try to keep my license up, because attorney-client privilege is one of the most awesome things ever to be able to engage, because it's practically impossible to break. It's essentially impossible to break attorney-client privilege once that's engaged. So that's a pretty awesome part about being a lawyer, and you lose that within the corporation if you have an unlicensed lawyer. So that's a little fun fact there. They would watch my streams, read my Discord, and threaten to sue me. And if I said anything that hinted towards how I felt about the company, I was threatened with a lawsuit. This is really predatory.
Welcome to Take 5 Oil Change.
Hey, how long will this take? I'm kind of in a rush.
Oh, just 10 minutes.
Get out! 10 minutes?
Extremely
predatory.
Another one of the leave terms was that they announced both me and Silver on the same day in order to minimize the damage to their company. The CEO began to push the narrative on 4chan. And yes, I'm serious. Another social media that I'm leaving because I plan to join OTK, and that both me and Silvervale are troublemakers, so they were letting us go. Later, I found that Nyaners wanted to leave around the same time due to also being unhappy with the contract, but was told that she couldn't because it would not fit the narrative they were pushing internally and externally. The amount of hate we've gotten over leaving, from fans calling us greedy biatches to people saying we're abandoning our friends and tossing aside the company because we're successful enough, shit was effing painful. Not being able to say anything sucked. I only found out I didn't get paid for any of my sponsors after I'd signed the NDA. After 2 years, I'd still not got paid. So literally, look, I mean, to be honest, that was probably why she signed the NDA in the first place, to be paid, and then she didn't even get paid. So she should have been like, hey, I'm going to speak up and break this NDA because you broke your payment terms. See, this is when you got to get an attorney involved, because this should not have gone 2 years. And this should have been remedied before 2 years. This is not okay.
Like, that's actually crazy. And I mean, obviously not okay, but it's honestly crazy that they actually did that.
And this is the problem with VTubing, is that these companies prey upon people that have limited resources and also limited knowledge of the legal system. And this is a huge abuse here. So if you are not being paid, and it has been 6 months or 3 months or 9 months or a year or 2 years, you need to speak to an attorney, please, a local attorney that specializes in labor law in the place where you are. To add insult to injury, they also demanded I pay them back $10K for some anniversary assets where they'd sent me months later, which were half finished. Despite all of that, I've had immense faith that the company had gotten better over the past 2 years. I've assumed they rewrote their contracts after losing 3 people due to them seeing all the new talent join. This was clearly not the case. Nope. Now some fun facts. Their company lawyer had an expired law license. He literally does not practice law. Yet he was the point of contact for any legal help we needed. This is dangerous. This is dangerous because once again, there's no attorney-client privilege. Speaking to this lawyer, it's not a law. I mean, it's not an attorney, right? They do not have a bar license, so that's a big deal. They actively pitted us against another during our time there, and compared to the success of others, they tried to enforce streaming schedules so that our view count will look better due to less overlap. They would always talk smack about other VTuber agencies. They literally would spend company money to get a tiny dig at them, especially HoloLive. And if this is where we find out they spent their money to they literally spent company funds to dig on HoloLive, this will be insane. It was literally
that's going to be a very big issue if that's the case.
They lived rent-free in Gunrun's head. They were convinced HoloLive was over when they signed Kason and Nazuna. Once again, HoloLive and Niji Sanji Anycolor are not going over or not going under for one bump in the road. Yes, they'll have some hiccups. Yes, they'll have some stops, but they're big enough and they're public companies, so they're capitalized at a much higher level than Gunrun, right? And Vshojo. Our previous talent manager got ghosted for 6 months by Gunrun, told not to do any work for us, and then got fired for not doing anything. During this fiasco, we weren't able to get any advice. That's crazy. This guy does seem very unstable. MTD got reprimanded for being creepy to us. Got told not to message us privately. I mean, this one, I want to know more details on, because this sounds like workplace, perhaps sexual harassment or gender discrimination. What was going on there? I mean, because that might be a criminal claim or a labor claim of its own, depending on what happened. We don't know. I mean, that's hinting like creepy. What does that mean? So that one is a question mark. I have proof from other streamers attending IRL parties that MTD would actively smack talk me after I left the company to paint me in the worst light imaginable. Don't know why you're acting innocent on Twitter, pretending you weren't aware of anything. That's a lie. Obviously, this guy knew, and he's lying through his teeth. According to the pitch deck in January, he knew.
Clearly lying.
Can't wait to see that's come out about you, because there's loads that aren't my stories to tell, and that is what I want to hear. So this is very interesting. This is the first person to break the NDA, but as I said, and I said this before, you guys remember, I said just you wait. It'll all come out. Be patient, and it is now coming out. It is now 100%.
And this is obviously a past video from 5 days ago, and more people have come out since then.
Coming out. Some other stuff that we're going to go over here on the PowerPoint, Mike, and this is other updated stuff. Henya did a stream, and in addition to saying that she was not paid, like many of the other talents, she mentioned merch and undelivered merch. Now, some of you have asked, is merch an asset? Well, yes, technically.
I would say,
but the problem is it's an asset that's already encumbered, meaning that those assets that they have in merch already need to be shipped out to customers that paid for them. So the customers that paid for them either need to get that merch or they need to get a refund for that merch. But let's say you take that merch and you sell it separately. You just sell it, the bankruptcy trustee takes the merch in a big bag of all the plushies and the hats and everything else, t-shirts, etc. Daki Makara, takes them all and sells them at a garage sale, and essentially liquidates them. He's not going to get full value, and he's not probably going to be able to pay people back full price on that. You might be able to just give them what they have if it's there, but we'll see. Even though, yes, merch is an asset, it's already allocated. It's already something that's been purchased in many of these cases because it's unshipped. This is a whole separate nightmare to deal with, a massive nightmare to deal with. And this is something that was exposed on the Henya stream. We also have Nyaners saying that she was also not paid. That's great. That's great. So not paid for multiple years going back.
Wait. Stream when she was swatted
back to 2023. So we're seeing this as something that is a trend for this company for several years, which is a problem and also shows that the gun run and the management team should have shut this thing down or trimmed it down or done some radical changes to this company years ago. This is not something that got out of hand in a couple of months. This is something he let dig into the dirt. He took $11 million.
This is a 5-year issue.
And spilled that into 2.1 million or 2.5 million in debt, right, in the hole. And we don't even know whether that's the full extent of how deeply they're in the hole right now. That's just some of the guesses on how deep this company is in the hole, but they're certainly not doing good. This is also vague, saying looks like nothing changed between 2023 and 2025 in terms of how the org management moves. Couldn't and still can't say because of the NDA. Well, she fixed that and we got that read out. So obviously, what the point I wanted to get for this is that this was going on in 2023, right? So it's going on for years. Silvervale, and this is a huge one, says that her heart goes out. There's a lot I wish I could say, but I signed a pretty aggressive NDA. They made my mom sign one too. Completely unenforceable. The mom has nothing to do with this. The mom has
There's no reason the mom would need to sign an NDA.
Way is in no way related, was likely not compensated, although I don't know for sure, right? I guess if they separately compensated her mom in some way, maybe. I highly doubt it. And I truly hope Silvervale speaks with an attorney and she just talks to an attorney, has a conversation, and says, I want to break this NDA. This company is defunct, right? What do you think, attorney? And I hope they give her the nod and she can speak up like Vebe, because this is a situation in which I want to hear how they made her mom sign that NDA and under what circumstances they did that. I want to hear that story specifically, because
I'm interested how that worked.
Has got to be one of the worst situations I've heard out there. And to me, the other thing that generally is so heartbreaking is that most VTubers tend to be on the young side. They tend to be younger people, right? So 20s, for example. And they haven't had a lot of experience in the business world. They haven't a lot of experience in the corporate world. And so they don't know what's normal and what's not normal. And they don't know that this is completely abnormal behavior. They're often so awestruck and starstruck by being part of a corporation and so excited to be part of a team that just sign off on anything. They just sign on the dotted line and do whatever it takes to get inside the corporation. You really got to take a beat, take a breath, and think about the soul that you're.
And also read it as well, because there's a lot of people don't read the things that they're signing
or selling. Next, we had these slide decks as well here that got leaked out. So this is one that once again separately confirmed they're in the hole for 2 million as of 6/21. And the last thing I want to talk about is piercing the corporate veil. So this is going after the personal assets of the managers, of the executive team, including the gun run, but also maybe MTD, other people, right, that were there before, to the extent they're culpable. So to the extent they are responsible for the wrongdoing, then, and only then, they can be on the line. So here's where the standard is for piercing the veil. So executives can be held personally liable for corporate liabilities if there's absence or inaccuracy of records, concealment, fraud, or financial misrepresentations, commingling of assets, siphoning of funds and assets, manipulation of assets and liabilities. And the last one, which I think is the most damning, is significant undercapitalization, which means not funding the company enough. And I think in this case, we have a very, very, very good chance to pierce the corporate veil, because many of these things do show up, do pop up. And if we get the appropriate evidence which links this, I think there's a chance, right? Once again, no certainty. There's never a certainty in the law, but there's a strong chance. The criminal investigation, I think, in my eyes, looking at this, has to happen into this company, particularly related to charity, particularly related to the allocation of funds, particularly related to the relationship with the wages. I think there needs to be an investigation of this absolutely as quickly as possible, and we will see what happens going forward. Of course, I will cover it on the legal mindset, and I will also catch you on the.
Are you guys enjoying the stream today?
The Office.
All right. That said, it's gonna be that's me to end today. I will probably make a video on this MADEIn related tomorrow, probably the same time around. Because I mean, I just kind of talked about it slightly, and kind of want. I'm probably gonna go more in detail tomorrow about it. So that's what you can look forward to, and until then, I'll see you all later. Bye.
Welcome to the
technical difficulties. Please stand by, please. There we go. Bye.
welcome to the Blizzard Arena.
And the quest for a champion begins today.
The anticipation has been building, and it is finally time. We are live.
Are you That is a really...
Can you get over the roof there?
Oh my.
Oh my, what a play, what a grab!
Another jump here on the high ground. Super goes forward, but gets stuck up. The EMP comes in, and ding, he rains down hell from above. Here comes Pine. Gets one, gets two. Looking for a bit more, gets another one. Vshojo down again. The Herald disaster generally for the Fusion, and Carpe wasn't far behind. Prophet, he's killed 4 players now on his own. From Vancouver, locks him in the sound barrier. Sound is huge. The bomb coming from China. Oh my God, he does it again.
Flutter now moving onto the Widowmaker, taking the clutch into his own hands. The headshot, and the headshot, and the headshot.
Okay, I like this for the Gladiators. We're gonna try and circle around. I'm gonna call this the merry-go-round because it makes me laugh. Makes me happy, and Sean Paul switches to the Widowmaker at just the right time!
Oh, the Graven!
Lord's name, stop.
That's so good. Oh, that's the goal.
I'm the best person in the world.
Oh my word!
I mean, you could have told me that you spoke English, honestly.
The fans never thought they'd see this day. It took 43 matches. Feels like a really emotional moment here.
Sorry.
All right, I'll see y'all later. Bye.